we lost a very good friend this year. Dan Fredrickson, or Dragons of Saturn as many knew him, was prominent in our Saturn scene. He was always there to shoot the breeze about sleeper hits, play some Netlink matches, and spread the good word of Riglord Saga. Many translation patches and homebrew projects are started by people with no prior experience. You'd be surprised by how many. They learn to hack and program as they go. This perhaps served as motivation for Mr. Fredrickson to start an English translation patch of Riglord Saga 2. With help from others, he took on this mighty undertaking, building upon his newfound hacking skills. Late last year, he was diagnosed with cancer. Initially, he made it sound like he still had a few years left, but those years became months, then weeks, then his final moments. His passing happened much sooner than we all expected. He leaves behind his daughter, his wife, and the countless friends he's made in our humble community. We miss him tremendously. Mr. Fredrickson did not want to leave his project forever unfinished. Sometime before his passing, he sent all the files to a team of known Saturn patchers who are now working to bring his translation to the finish line. And that brings us to the first entry for this year's SegaXtreme Saturn Homebrew Contest. It's a small progress report from the team. Here they show us a test battle displaying functioning translated menu text for battles. It's not much for now, though it's a sure sign of progress. The fact that multiple people are now seeing this through is one of the coolest things to ever happen in retro games. A huge shout out to the team. Thank you for carrying on Mr. Fredrickson's memory in such an incredible way. For the 31st anniversary, 31 entries enter the ring in this year's SegaXtreme Saturn Homebrew Contest. Iron devs from around the world demonstrate extreme creativity, skill, and ingenuity, clashing in a yearly showcase. What incredible creations will grace our video display processors? Will this new software forever change the Saturn experience? Who will walk away as champions? The heat will be on! This year, we're doing things a little differently. Contest host Dr. Emerald Nova is having us judges write short magazine reviews for each entry, sort of in EGM style. This is easy enough for me since I write about each entry every year. When I do these yearly homebrew contest videos, I usually divide them up into categories. Instead, I'm going to go through them in the order they were submitted, regardless of category. Some are original games, others are translations, hacks, utilities, etc. I'll specify as we go. Before we start, a note about generative AI.
Roger.
For professional reasons, I cannot get into my deep opinions about the tech currently being marketed as AI. I will say this to the Saturn scene. Before AI went big, we were able to port Unreal to this 1994 hardware, beat commercial Saturn games' 3D capabilities, translate dozens of Japan-only titles, create custom Saturn development tools and engines, forge several ODE devices, force peripherals into games that do not support them, fix the Doom port, bring back Netlink, and even force online play into games that do not support any multiplayer at all. So, I don't understand why the Saturn scene could possibly need AI. As I review these homebrew entries, I'll do my best to let you, the viewer, know if an entry's using AI, but I can only really do that if the dev self-reports. After all, I'm just a panda. I'm doing my best. Alright, on with entry number 2. The team that brought us the Silhouette Mirage translation is back with a work-in-progress patch of Sword and Sorcery.
We're in the whip.
Translator Wired Crackpot and hacker Gregory Rasputin are bringing us an English version of this cutesy RPG, developed and published by Microcabin in 1996. It officially came to the West in English once on 3DO, under the name Lucian's Quest. Lucian's Quest? I don't know, man. Given the anime girl energy in its intro and the quality of these patchers' past work, I think we're in for a treat. So far, the dialogue in the start of the adventure is pretty well translated. We have a somewhat serious main protag who's struggling with being a werewolf. The psychic we're seeking help from is a Linkle liver story-ass sidekick. Her, combined with the mindfully deadpan narrator text, set the tone for a more tongue-in-cheek plotline. It's humor that works, an occasionally subtle sense of humor that comes across well in Crackpot's translation. We got dynamic text here, sometimes it gets big. But friends, let's take a moment to observe Microcabin's low frame rate scuzz. Hell yeah! The tone of the characters really carry the experience for me, and pair nicely with these stanky 3D effects just struggling to operate correctly. I love it. The battle system's really cool too. They're locked into a small grid, forcing battles to focus more on action and less on movement. The patch is in version 0.2 right now. Very much looking forward to the final product. A platform fighter? On my good Sanshiro and Sega Saturn? Fist of Ouchie from Nolan is a fairly basic two-player concept. So far, this has no sound at all. There are no CPU fighters, so this can only be played with 2 people. You can choose from multiple characters, so that's nice. Your homie can run, jump, punch, and kick. I like this little fire animation. Drain the other homie's health bar and you win. Each match starts on a different stage, all constructed from grass cubes. That's going to be a theme today. Nolan says this is a Saturn port of a fighter they made for a game jam in high school. Fists of Ouchie is still getting updates on the SegaXtreme page, so if you're interested in its progress, check that page for the latest version. Shout out to Portugal! Sega Europe and Echo Films really knew their audience. In the mid-90s, both Dragon Ball and Sega were apparently popular in Portugal, along with other parts of Europe. So localizing this was extremely smart. It's still not in English, and they never brought it to the US. Wonder Inc. syncs to Englishify. With options for both PAL and NTSC, the patch translates menu text and intro bits. Of course, the fighting itself is all the same. I still don't know how to play this damn thing, though I always liked how it uses exclusively 2D graphics in a 3D environment. It looks really cool. I just can't figure out how I'm supposed to drag on all the balls. It still has some Japanese text baked into graphics, and the voice acting's in Japanese too. The official European release was the same way. They just left all this stuff in Japanese, in this licensed localization. But thank you for finally translating this to English at all. Shout out to Wonder Inc. In the utilities category, we have Orbital Organizer from Derek. This is an SD card management utility tool for anyone who uses the Rhea Phoebe ODE device. I do not own one, so I personally have no use for this. If you own one, you have a use for this. This was supposed to be a submission to last year's homebrew contest, but they were not able to get it done until after the submission deadline. So here it is this year. Sakura Wars 2 in English. Noah Steam and Trekkies Unite 118 led the project with a massive team of translators, editors, and graphics people. Many of the faces from the first game's translation team are returning, bringing just as big of an effort as the first game's English patch. For those unaware, this is the sequel in a strategy RPG/dating sim, continuing the story from where we left off in Game 1. Japanese Saturn fans consider these 2 games to be among the very best in the entire console library, and for good reason. It's fun, it's cozy. Playing Sakura Wars is the same experience as watching old-school anime while under a warm blanket with a cup of cocoa in hand. It is so difficult to not have a good time while playing this thing. And the translation team does a killer job at making this feel like an official release. Any serious Saturn fan should at least try out Sakura Wars. It's just so good. This sequel brings the gang back together and introduces us to some new faces. The quiet and wickedly intelligent Remy from Germany, and the fiery Orihime, who is part Italian and hates Japanese men. This is a recurring theme for her. Can you change her? Or will you remain loyal to love interest of choice from Game 1? I got through the first few chapters so far, and I can safely tell you, The translation team does not miss. Extremely well done. Bringing these legendary Saturn games to the Western audience is an extraordinary gift to society at large. I'm probably going to incorrectly say this next entry's name. Enceladus Worlds from Tales of Saturn was submitted to the Utilities category. This is a 3D stage builder derived from Puff Pastry Panic. You may remember that from Tales' submission to last year's contest.
We now have a 3D scene.
If you're interested in learning more about this tool, I would highly recommend watching Tales' video about this project. I'll link it below. Coup is a self-described proof of concept for Homebrew Netlink. It's a card game allowing more than 2 Saturns to play against each other online via Netlink. It claims cross-platform multiplayer with the web app and mobile devices. Farkas said this to Shiro, quote, "I actually can't code at all and hardly read it, but with AI, I can suddenly do a lot," confessing 99% of Coup was written by Claude AI. A little tech demo from Pixel Poppy Productions, or Triple P. Interactive Particle Generator is exactly what the title advertises. In this tech demo, you can generate particles, you can interact with particles. Cool! A major progress report from VBT with the ongoing Flashback project. This is a Saturn port of the Max CD version of Flashback with sound elements from the Sega CD port. When this was first submitted to the 2024 contest, it was in somewhat rough shape. But for 2026, it's a lot better. Seems to be very playable now. Vast improvement from the previous whip. I'm still pretty bad at Flashback, so surely someone out there will revoke my gamer card for this. Back on topic here, it's in 480i, the animations run beautifully, sound design seems to be all intact, and the text cutscenes play out appropriately. All I need now is skill. VBT obviously has great skill for doing such a great job with this port. It's pretty clear to me that once this is completely done, it'll become one of the more definitive ways to experience Flashback. Up next is VBT's second submission, Heavy Overdrive Drift. I was expecting a racing game, so imagine my surprise when I saw this. What the heck? That's not a Garfield Kart clone. That's not even a Toge Drift racing game. That's just Heart of Darkness. You know, that cinematic 2D platformer that almost got timed exclusivity on Saturn before being canceled in favor of a PlayStation release. You know, the one that had a build leak online but was unable to run on console without an unreleased 6MB RAM cartridge, but you could actually run it with unnatural Frankenstein-like enhancements. Yeah, that one. I get it, VBT. You named it Heavy Overdrive Drift, but it's actually Heart of Darkness is the first letters. I see what. It's a good one, man. Anyway, this is an early demo of VBT's port in progress. He teased this earlier this year, now letting us get a hands-on taste of how the port's doing so far. It runs on stock Saturn hardware, so that's a start. No audio at all yet, and it seems like just a handful of scenarios are playable so far. What's here runs pretty well, though. It's a promising project. Only took 30 years for this thing to finally come out. Shout out to VBT for trying to finish the job in Amazing Studios' absence. Looking forward to this one. Disasteroids is a 12-player Asteroids clone that was already put into a previous SegaXtreme Saturn Homebrew contest. It was created by Superfly. Superfly, also known as Slinga, has made several other 12-player Saturn games. For those not aware, yes, you can plug 12 controllers into one Sega Saturn.
Full 12 or 6-on-6 play through a single unit.
So this submission from Farkas is a Netlink mod of Superfly's Disasteroids. Like Coup, Farkas used Claude AI to generate this. Jolly Roger is submitting a demo to the Utilities category. So this may look whatever, but what's happening here is pretty amazing. This demo shows how one can use the Saturn's SESP DSP audio chip to render polygons instead of audio. So what's happening here is we're hijacking the audio chip to render 3D graphics. which would allow the SH2 processors to focus on other things. Jolly Roger estimates this strategy would increase Saturn's 3D capabilities by about 20% or so. Reminds me of what the Crash Bandicoot devs did when they overwrote development libraries to render more GONs. I love this. Ponut is a long-timer in the SegaXtreme Saturn Homebrew contest seasons. They tinker with homespun 3D projects, including Slide Hop, a personal favorite of mine. This year, Ponut is sending us a test demo for an FPS engine they're working on, called FPS Test Project. In its current state, the demo runs basic 3D assets over competent movement physics, with promising graphics. I absolutely dig the billboarded gun sprite. This might be one of the coolest looking pistols I've ever seen in a 5th gen game, which alone makes me want to play whatever full game this may become. The glimpse into this ongoing project is pretty basic, but I should note, Ponut is one of the Saturn homebrew scene's finest programmers, so should they decide to see this thing through, I very much look forward to seeing how it turns out. The pause menu shows you can load other levels, but every time I tried, it crashed, so I'm not sure if that's a feature that'll come later, or if it's just not working for me. This is just a tech demo anyway, so it's fine. If you have not played Slide Hop, I'd highly recommend giving it a shot. Its movement physics are like if Tribes and Tony Hawk bred via test tube in the labs of Black Mesa. When you get the hang of how its inertia works, Slide Hop becomes a very fun game. Go check it out. Next is Shadows of Peakwater from 500 Zork Mids. Not a lot to see here at the moment. It's clearly early. Long paragraphs of dialogue text show up in a very hard to read font size with no background. I would like to know more about how the character art was created. After getting through some chatter, I moved on to a very basic grid-based battle system with no environment, super standard attacks, and more dialogue. At first, I thought my attacks did no damage, but turns out the health bar graphic is just weird. I eventually lost, ending my time with what appears to be a strategy RPG tech demo. Frog Bowl, a recent and upcoming Iron dev in 3D Saturn Homebrew, submitted a utility this year. This is the Saturn TON Editor. Maybe it's Tone Editor? That'd probably make more sense, actually. It's straight from the Frog Bowl toolbox. This utility allows Saturn devs to edit, create, and inspect tone files from commercial or custom Saturn games. What does this mean in English? Well, if I'm understanding this correctly, there's a MIDI sound chip on Saturn hardware. Many commercial games use this to create MIDI soundtracks. This is actually a pretty big step for Saturn Homebrew as a whole. Frog Bowl has expanded what devs can do with Saturn's MIDI chip, which often goes pretty underutilized in this homebrew scene. Simple City version 0.2. It is a very toned-down SimCity clone from Penguin Emporium. There are only 4 selectable tools. You can use this cursor to create a single type of building, a straight train track, or erase things that are currently on screen. It does show other types of buildings put into the map, as if to imply that there will be more to this project later on down the road, but at the moment you can't do a whole lot. I was delighted to see that you can put a train on the track and watch it move around. I also edited the track so that the train ran off of this flat world. Pour one out for the passengers and crew, looking forward to seeing future versions of Simple City. This is the first of 2 secret entries. A sick whip of the English translation of Devil Summoner Soul Hackers. This long-awaited project comes to us from Trekkies Unite 118. This turn-based RPG from Atlas has you fighting demons alongside your own demons, crawling through the dungeons of a modern-day city, connected through a computer network called Paradigm X. Your gun is a computer. Your Pokemon can possess your friends. This came out only in Japan on PlayStation and Saturn, then many years later, got an English localization on 3DS. While the 3DS port is cool and all, being able to play this with the Saturn's creamy 3D graphics hits way different, and it hits well. Again, this is a work in progress. The English text is injected, but there are still some issues with text warping and dialogue boxes. So the text scrolls somewhat sloppily. It's good enough for me to read, but it's certainly not a release candidate. Oh shit, Sakura's in this game? Even with these slight text issues, I was pretty engrossed. The game Atlas carved is just that good. Just look at this. I cannot wait for this translation to be done. You bet I'll be tearing through both discs right away. In fact, I'm probably just gonna say screw it and tear through them right now, even with the present issues. Existence has released a partial menu translation of 2D Fighter Astra Superstars. All this really does is translates some of the menus. The dialogue in between fights and many other elements are still in Japanese, so this is far from a full translation. Regardless of where this translation project goes, you should all play the base game, Astra Superstars. Came out in 1998. I love this take on the genre. It's a somewhat traditional 2D fighter, with characters like Girl Santa, not Juggernaut, Witch with Mickey Mouse glove wand. Here's where it gets spicy. You float, still moving left and right like a traditional fighter, but you can jump over and jump under the opponent. I have not played another fighter that does this, and Sunsoft pulls it off cleanly. I highly recommend Astra Superstars to the Saturn homies. Nai-san has set out on a noble mission. Make a Dragon Ball game for the Sega Saturn that doesn't suck. This entry of Dragon Ball Saturn is a demo of its first stage. It's very easy to tell much love and care is being put into this thing. It has an FMV intro, a homebrew game with an FMV intro. Solid presentation on the main menus, and shout out to the Portuguese language option. Starting the game brings me to a beautiful VDP2 overworld. I love this. You, the player, can fly little Goku across the water to various islands, have a small amount of dialogue to start you off on the quest to find Dragon Balls, then fly on over to Stage 1. This brings us to the game's one and only major problem. At first I thought the game crashed when I flew to Stage 1. No. This is a loading time. I'm using a burnt disk since I did have some issues on Satiator. This took a whopping 3 minutes to load. Alright, I'd like to turn your attention away from this and focus on everything else, because this game is pretty fantastic. Getting into the gameplay, it becomes a classic 2D beat-em-up. Massive and well-animated sprites come out to attack Goku, scaling in and out as they move closer and further from the screen. It looks amazing. Controls are simple, an attack button to slam baddies, a jump button, a dive kick, usual beat-em-up fare. This little flashing go appears when it's time to move. Item pickups come in boxes between sets, and the music put in sounds great. Environments become truly transparent when you get close enough to them, so that's really cool. On top of all this, I actually had fun tearing through this first level. Nai-san is clearly out to create a fully fledged dynamic video game with an overworld, dialogue, and fun combat. This does not feel experimental. It feels like a video game. I had a great time with this one-stage demo and cannot wait for what's next. Great job. Hey, check it out. Our guy got to test his game on a real Sega Pluto. Hell yeah. I'm reviewing the next two entries as one thing since they're both part of the same package. This is a retranslation of World War II turn-based strategy game Iron Storm, and a translation of its Japan-only expansion game, localized as Iron Storm Operation Files, originally known as World Advanced Daisenryaku Sakusen File. It was devved by Sega CS2, allowing players to command either the Japanese Empire, the US Army, or Nazi Germany, and blast away in real-life historic battles.
Are we the baddies?
If you change the outcome of World War II, you can take things further and battle other parts of the world that were previously not a part of the real-life conflict. I have not personally played a lot of Iron Storm, but many who do say it's one of the Saturn's finest strategy games. Plot set aside, it's legit fun to play. The quality of the translation patch is pretty damn good. I didn't notice any issues with the text, everything looks and reads super cleanly. Now, the first game in this 2-game set did get localized to the US in 1996, in English and everything. It did not come out in Europe. So why the retranslation? This is why. In today's retro community, a significant amount of people feel working designs did not translate games in a way they would prefer. If you ask me, I'm just impressed this got localized at all, since it shows things that would potentially affect the visibility of this video. Hemulin took on the Herculean task of translating this entire war strategy game to better reflect the Japanese original, and fully translated what's essentially the sequel. If strategy games are your jam, then you should probably try out Iron Storm, since this is a cut above most of the Saturn's offerings in this genre. Hemulin, job well done. Oh shit, it's Minecraft. Okay, so fun fact. I've never played Minecraft. Dead serious, never booted it up once in my entire life. As a 31-year-old in 2026, I'm right at the age cutoff for Minecraft players. Like, I think virtually everyone at least 1 or 2 years younger than me grew up as a Minecraft kid, but I'm exactly at the line where its unintended target audience just stops. First impression? Damn impressive. It's no surprise to see Raimi programmed this, with art and music help from Shiroi, and other help from Purist. The movement controls are kind of bananas. To their credit, this was not meant to take in the modern-day dual-stick setup. You move the camera with the D-pad, taking care of all other movement and action with the face buttons, placing and breaking blocks with the shoulder buttons. If you ever played Half-Life on Dreamcast with a stock controller, you should be able to get used to this without issue. My only other gripe is the camera does get a little screwy when you're right up on a block. Beyond all that, I'm very impressed with how big these worlds are and how many block types you have access to. Set out lava, blow things up, flood the lands, dig some deep holes, or just walk around and vibe. Certainly a very ambitious porting project. Well, I guess I don't know if it's technically a port, but whatever. I will admit to you, I got sucked into this for a while, and for a brief moment, I began to understand why people like this game so much. There's like a pretty unique feeling you get when you play this game. I don't know if it's reflective of how people feel when they play it on PC, but I don't know, I felt super relaxed here. There are definitely some Saturn fans who are real excited about this. Great job. As a 31-year-old in 2026, I did grow up playing Flash games on the internet. Long live Flash, shout out to Newgrounds, shout out to Congregate, cool math games, etc. World's hardest game is in a Flash category that ascends to significant impact to the video game industry. It is a certified hood classic. Originally from Steven Kritoff, Urvilsoft has generously and faithfully ported this to Saturn. The concept is deceptively simple. You use the D-pad to move the red square from one part of the map to another. If you touch a blue circle, you die. And if yellow circles are present, you must collect them. As advertised in the game's title, these levels can get pretty difficult.
Oh, I got it. There we go. That one was easy. My ass, that was easy.
I love how the text screens in between stages are kept in. This one is easier than your mother. Again, the year was 2007. Urvilsoft included a reskinned Saturn mode and an optional remix of the game's one-song soundtrack. The port absolutely rails. World's hardest game has 30 levels. Your score is how many times you die, so golf rules.
You can count on me, because I know I can make it.
The port itself runs really well, so no complaints about this entry from me. The ultimate meme would be making a physical long box release. Like, I'd totally buy it. Hey, if we're porting Flash games to the Saturn now, can I put in a humble request for Papa Louie? Thanks. This abstract shmup, Noise 2 SA, came out on computer platforms in the early 2000s, later getting a competent port to the Dreamcast. For this year's homebrew contest, the.chojin is porting it to the Sega Saturn, making use of newer homebrew development tools like SRL and Pone Sound. This port is not done yet, it's just a whip. Due to self-reported memory allocation issues, The game occasionally crashes, and sometimes enemies don't shoot any bullets. The frame rate's all over the place, going from very smooth to fewer than 20. Though a low frame rate's not exactly unwelcome for shmups. Still, even with its problems, I had a good time trying this out. I stuck around with it for longer than I expected. The gameplay design of the base game is really well done, so I actually had fun when the game ran well. Looking forward to seeing how this one turns out when it's done. Keep up the good work. We have a CubeCat entry. The cat is back. This is an ongoing 3D platformer project with roots firmly planted in the Saturn homebrew scene. Seven Shades used CubeCat as a way to learn how to program, turning into one of the Saturn scene's greatest 3D homebrew efforts. I interviewed the Iron Dev at PRGE in 2023. It's linked below. The Codesmith intends to create a full-length CubeCat game at some point. Until then, Seven Shades occasionally puts out demos for the SegaXtreme contest, and this one's the latest. Like before, we have a heavy amount of polygons rendering with a good frame rate. Level of detail draw distance is put to great use, adjustable to the player if you want to sacrifice frames to the Gone Gods. This demo takes place in an all-new level, showing how Seven Shades is now implementing characters you can talk to who give you missions. Complete a mission to win a sacred stitch. Think orb missions in Spyro 2, it's kind of like that. We also get a glimpse of how portals will work, transporting us to a cave area in this demo. This specific area is not complete. Like before, you can jump, double jump, pounce enemies, and pounce above ground for an airborne dash. Yarn balls spawn at these thread spool wells. CubeCat can hold them in their mouth, throw them onto platforms, and bounce off of them for a big jump. Watch out for those pesky cube rats. Like before, VDP2 is being put to great use for the water and sky, a great use of Saturn hardware. Seven Shades says to look out for future updates to this demo. This utility entry has to do with Culdcept, a turn-based strategy card game released only in Japan for the Saturn. Ben Claff started an English translation some time ago, but along the way, it was announced this would get an official remaster in English as part of the Saturn Tribute series. It's out now on Steam and will later be out on console. Here's where things get odd. Much like the Saturn Tribute translation of Assault Suit Lanos 2, this is actually a translated Saturn ROM running on a Saturn emulator, except it's an official licensed release. Theoretically, one could extract the bin queue and get it running on a real Saturn, but the bin queue is encrypted, so putting this over here is apparently not a straightforward process. This has yet to be done for either game. In light of this news, Ben Claff stopped working on this fan-made translation. In this entry are the tools Ben Claff used to work on his original translation project, so if anyone out there cares to inject text to the Saturn original, this should serve as a decent starting point. The next entry consists of multiple game hacks from Private Eye. These are quality of life improvements for 3 light gun games, Virtua Cops 1 and 2, and House of the Dead.
Rogan, it's you! Nobody leaves here alive.
All 3 of them include a mode that disables the white flashes, making them easier on the eyes for setups that don't require them. Very useful for anyone using a send-in light gun on FPGA, or anyone running these games on an emulator. There are also game-specific fixes like unlocking game modes in Virtua Cop, mapping reload to a single button on a controller, and a number of changes to House of the Dead. Things like changing blood color to red, simplifying stage select, and unlocking more characters. Private Eye also got rid of the press start text, which is subtle but nice. I don't have a send-in gun, but when I do, these will be among the first games I try out with it.
This is terrible.
This project has been a real treat to follow. It's the latest update to Hass Machine's Pixel Poppy Pong. As it appears, this is a cat-themed Pong clone. Get the cat face in your opponent's goal to decrease their health bar. Drain it to win. Your cat paddle moves in 8 directions and can smack the puck with extra oomph by pressing a face button. But those smacks take up stamina, which does recharge over time. Items like Craig Stadler's face and Garfield will give you power-ups. It's in the style of a fighting game, complete with a cat select screen and a Mortal Kombat-style opponent ladder. The UI here is a cut above the rest, with real good menu design too. I'm always impressed by the presentation of Triple P. Shout out to Random for composing an incredible soundtrack for this video game, especially that final boss music, damn. I'm not sure what's left for this project, but as it stands, this is a humble yet complete feeling video game, so at this point I'd really recommend just snagging the latest version from the SegaXtreme resource page and trying it out. Hass Machine's put in a lot of work, and it's actually really fun to play. Another note, the CPU opponents have also come a long way. They're legitimately challenging and fun to play against now. It's another squeakquel to Superfly's Save Game Copier. This utility boots on your Saturn, allowing you to manage your save files. I personally use this to back up my internal save files to a folder on my satiator. This is useful, especially when the internal save battery dies. Its interface is simple, and it just plain works. This thing is a must-have for anyone with a Saturn ODE. It now has support for the modem, the serial link cable, and can do VCD card dumps. Thank you to Superfly/Slinga for making this. We've talked about this one quite a bit in the Saturn scene. If you're new, let me try to catch you up. When Doom was ported to the Saturn, it did not run well at all. Chalk it up to development hell. Bottom line, terrible performance, awful frame rate. The Japanese localization of this port was a little better, but still bad. Fafling, an absolute boss, has spent the past few years making it through a very long list of tweaks and micro-optimizations. Fafling's patch makes Doom for Saturn very playable, night and day difference. This year, the Iron Dev is submitting version 0.3, which is even better than the last. Saturn owners now have no reason to play the stock version of Doom. Instead, play the latest version of Fafling's fix. Whenever these drop, Shadowmask always posts a mirror that restores the original soundtrack. That's my personal favorite way to play Doom on Saturn now. I'm shocked this is being labeled as version 0.3, like implying this could get even better somehow. If that's the case, keep up the outstanding work.
Nice.
Well, that's all 31 of the submissions to this year's Saturn Homebrew Contest. As always, there are a number of other ongoing and finished Saturn Homebrew games that were not submitted. Wayale no Kiseki Extra 36 Holes, which is done by the same team that did Pebble Beach, had an English translation hidden in its code, so Sweetavare Pendragon released an English activation patch. Private Eye also did a bunch of quality of life patches for other light gun games like Crypt Killer, Chaos Control, Die Hard Trilogy, Area 51, Maximum Force, Mighty Hits, and Death Crimson. Cool Filler released English activation patches for the Emmet Trilogy, Mizubaku Daiboken, Battle Garega, and Bubble Symphony. Full Set is porting its original Neo Geo shmup, Project Neon, to Saturn, as well as porting its online game Overserved to Saturn. Again, these are all new original indie games, and they're being sold as physical copies, requiring their own bespoke cartridge. The Landgrisser 3 translation is now being revived by 2 separate patchers, Ralph Guth and Vermilion Deserts. Again, these are 2 separate projects. Cyber Warrior X is reportedly still working on it as well. Back to Vermilion Deserts, that patcher also translated Lupin III Pyramid no Kenja, and also improved the English in Willy Wombat. Humble Bazooka revived work on the 3D controller Bluetooth adapter. N83 ported Celeste Classic to Saturn. I'm surprised this was not submitted to the contest. Retro Raider John posted a playable demo of the ongoing Saturn port of Tomb Raider 2. This is insane, definitely check this out. Frogbull, as it turns out, also did a port of Minecraft to Saturn, though I do not believe this is publicly available. XL2 of Hellslave and Iriel fame seems to be dipping his toes back into Saturn Homebrew after a long hiatus, showing off Saturn ray tracing earlier this year. Snow Aria made a highly anticipated English translation patch for Air's Adventure. Serial link cable support was added to Joe Engine. Hitomi 2500 updated the Saturn port of 240p Test Suite. Remus, I don't know how to say this. I'm sorry. I don't know how to say that. Made an English translation patch of Wizardry 6 and 7 Complete, using the English scripts from its DOS releases. And Team Sakura Brazil translated Magic Knight Rayearth to Portuguese. There's another major original Saturn homebrew game that came out since last year's contest. Vigilant Paradise. This full-length first-person shooter shadow dropped on itch late last year, and it took the Saturn scene a little while to notice. This thing's amazing. So amazing, it's getting its own video. That'll come out soon.
Guess no one told him breakfast is over at 10 a.m.
As I said before, us judges doing things a little differently this year. Instead of ranking the games by quality and order, we're nominating games for best of in certain categories, and writing little magazine reviews for them. That zine should be out in digital form now. Shout out to all the entries, shout out to the many projects that were not submitted. If you want to play these for yourself, many of them are on the SegaXtreme website. Others are posted elsewhere. Some are not posted at all because they're not complete yet. Thanks again for watching. Have a great rest of your day.
And that's all for today.